Hello, and welcome to Hiring for Impact, LinkedIn, Nonprofits, and Changing the World Together. My name's David Ellis, and I'm so excited to welcome you all to this session and to Talent Connect generally. I think this is going to be a wonderful use of our time, and we're really happy to have you join us today. Now, we're going to have a really productive hour together, and we've got a lot to cover. But before we get started, I wanted to take a couple minutes to do a few things, and I'd start by asking for a little bit of a quick poll. I'd love for those of you who currently are employed at a nonprofit, if you could raise your hands, please. Okay, great. Wonderful, thank you. So it's about 2/3 of the room, it looks like, and I think you're going to love today's session. For those of you who aren't currently working at a nonprofit, that's great. I think you're going to find a ton of value out of this session today. Jeff Brock from Habitat for Humanity's here. He's got a great speech for us, and then we also have some other activities that are going to be incredibly useful for everyone. Excuse me. Now, before we get started with that, I wanted to take just a minute to share a little bit about who we are, who LinkedIn is in terms of our nonprofit efforts. Now, LinkedIn has a number of individuals who work in various aspects of our nonprofit space. We have people who are focused on working for our charitable programs and our nonprofit grant programs. We also have people who work to ensure our employees are able to contribute their time, their money, and their energy to nonprofits. Then there's a team of individuals who help our 313 million members around the world share their volunteer experiences, their desire for working for or volunteering, and their interest in their ability to learn about volunteer and nonprofit opportunities on LinkedIn. In addition to those individuals and those various teams, we have a group of individuals I wanted to share with you today who are focused purely on our nonprofit customers, you all. These individuals are Mackenzie Candell, Ariana Unai, and Stephanie Alberti. They're our fabulous relationship managers. And Catherine Rivera supports that team, as well as talks with our nonprofit individuals and organizations who are interested in learning more about becoming a customer of LinkedIn. Now, that's somewhat interesting, but I think more so than who we are today is who we're going to become. The team that I just mentioned, the individuals on the last slide and the others, are collectively working to bring LinkedIn's assets, our data, our 313 million members, our customers, and our employees together to achieve world-changing impact. And along the way, along the journey that LinkedIn's taken to do that, we're going to make working with LinkedIn better than ever before. And we're doing that with a few key steps. I thought I'd just share a couple of those today. First off, we're tripling our relationship management team. I'm going to have those individuals in seat before the end of this year. Secondly, we're investing in additional resources to support our existing as well as our future customers more effectively. And third, I've spoken with individuals on our executive leadership team at LinkedIn about the vision for our future. And I can share with you that we have commitment from the highest levels of this organization to being a leader in the nonprofit space and a leading partner to you. So what does that all mean for your organization? Well, hopefully it's all good things. I think it will mean for you more consistent and better support, and also ultimately is going to lead to a deeper partnership with LinkedIn. And here's the commitment that I want to share with you today. We are going to work every day as hard as we can to becoming your best partner. We have the world's largest network of professionals, and we're going to help you leverage that network as well as your LinkedIn solution to finding the best talent in the world wherever it resides. There's over 2.5 million people that have explicitly expressed their interest in volunteering or working for a nonprofit. And several thousand raise their hands every single day to add to that number. We're going to help you find those people, recruit them, and drive ever greater success for your nonprofits as a result. And we're going to continue doing this. It's not a one-time thing. And the reason we're going to continue doing it, amongst many other reasons, is that it's core to the very fabric of who we are as an organization. Our vision is to create economic opportunity for every member of the global workforce. That means having every nonprofit volunteer role, full-time role, and board role on LinkedIn. In addition to that, we're working every day to getting every professional member of the workforce globally onto LinkedIn. We're going to have their education, their experience, their skills, and their interests represented on their profile. And when you do those two things, it allows talent an opportunity to meet like never before. It allows you to be able to identify the best talent for your organization wherever it resides. And it makes the process for members who are learning about your nonprofits more seamless than it's ever been in the past. We feel that the impact of this is going to be game-changing for your organizations. And we're so excited to do that, and we're so excited to begin that journey with you and continue it, I guess I should say, today. Now, I wanted to end by saying that we couldn't do this without you, and so thank you. Thank you very much for being a partner with LinkedIn, for walking with us down this journey. We're so excited to work with you, and our commitment is to continue working with you every day to make your organizations as successful as possible. So with that, I'm going to bring up Mackenzie Candell, one of our relationship managers, to give a bit of an introduction for Jeff. Thanks very much.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. Mackenzie here. Nice to see some faces that I know out there. So I'm going to walk us through the agenda very briefly and then introduce a good friend and our client, Jeff, to the stage. So, as I said, I'll talk a little bit about Jeff's background in just a minute, and he'll come up here for about 15, 20 minutes telling the Habitat story. And then we'll spend about 20 minutes or so in breakouts in 4 sessions that my colleague Ariana will talk more about. We'll share those best practices and takeaways at the end for 5 or 10 minutes and just end with some closing remarks. So hopefully a jam-packed, hopefully another 40 minutes or so. So let me introduce Jeff. So Jeff has over 20 years of human resources staffing, generalist, and management experience. His experience in HR has primarily been centered in the areas of staffing, employee relations, and general HR functions in a large international scope. And for the last 8 years, he's been a global director of HR with Habitat for Humanity, and also the lead HR director for AmeriCorps program within Habitat for Humanity's world. And I'll end with something that's not on Jeff's profile that you wouldn't know, that he did give me permission to say, I will tell you, that at a time where kids could drive school buses, he was allowed to drive a school bus when he was in high school and drove kids around, picking them up to and from school, which I thought was very cool. So that was something not on his LinkedIn profile, which is a very common thing that we talk about to any new employee of LinkedIn. We embarrass you for a few minutes and then introduce you to the stage. So, so come on up, Jeff. Let's give him a warm welcome.
Right, good evening. It's way late in Atlanta, where I'm based out of. So with Habitat for Humanity, if most people, I have probably interviewed 2 people in 8 years that never heard of us, and that's anywhere in the world that I've interviewed someone. So it's nice to have a fairly large international brand like we do. If you don't know much about us, we are an affiliated organization. We have around 1,400 affiliates in the U.S., and we operate in 80 countries around the world. We're a little unique in that we're almost like a franchise. I work for the headquarters, Habitat for Humanity International. We own the brand. You can't be a Habitat without meeting our rules and following our policies, but at the same time, we're at every city you're in. I'm sure there's a Habitat for Humanity in that city, and they are their own 501c3. So they're separate independent nonprofits, yet they are under our umbrella since we're the national organization. We do operate in the 80 countries. We operate on all continents of the world, Asia, Latin America and Caribbean, Europe, and Africa. And we actually have staff in all of those parts of the world as well. So my team is responsible for staffing employees, both those who are international employees, meaning they're not from the country in which our office is based, and those who are local nationals. So our little team out of Atlanta actually manages all the staffing for Habitat for the headquarters. We have a very unique process in our hiring. I don't know how many of you have this, but our senior leaders have to approve every individual who goes onto our payroll as a regular full-time employee, which means that it all comes to my office. I take it in a weekly meeting to them for their approval. It is funny sometimes that they actually think that I've interviewed all of the candidates that we bring in, and we'll ask very specific questions about them. So the team that I lead has to have a lot of details that they give me in order to be ready to make the presentation. And that is literally if it's a secretary in Bangkok, Thailand, or if it's a VP in Bratislava, they all have to channel up through that hiring process. Probably the first question we ask any candidate is who founded Habitat. If they say Jimmy Carter, that's immediately no, we do give them consideration, but we were not founded by Jimmy Carter. He is probably one of our most vocal and biggest supporters, and is really probably the reason that the brand expanded the way it did, that and quite a few events that we were connected to, especially in the past 8 or 9 years. Overall, my team is responsible for bringing in about 1,000 people a year to the organization. If you're a volunteer, to the headquarters, not to the local affiliates, but to the headquarters. If you're an intern, if you're an AmeriCorps member, if you're a fellow, or if you are an employee, actually, we're responsible for you coming on board with us. So we're about 800 employees total for the whole headquarters, but the number of people we bring in annually is significantly higher than that. We have about 7 staffing professionals on the team, but they cover every area of responsibility that you could imagine when it comes to recruiting. We sort of have to, you never know quite any one day whether you're going to be recruiting a volunteer, recruiting an intern, recruiting an AmeriCorps member, or recruiting an employee. Probably one of the things that has transitioned with us over the years is Habitat in its early days was located in a small southern city in Georgia called Americus, Georgia. And they really had no true staffing process. You basically, if someone showed up at the door and said, I love Habitat, I want to help, they said, what can you do? And they said, well, I've done a little accounting, a little IT, and they just put them wherever they had a need. So that was the staffing process for about the first 20 years of the organization. When I was brought in right around 9 years ago, and then became director 8 years ago, we really needed a professional staffing process. Our brand had gone from a little under $1 billion when you represent the entire organization to over $3 billion now. So that for those of you in the nonprofit, to protect the brand is one of the main parts of your hiring process. And so we really had to elevate the skill sets, change the way we were doing staffing, and really create a new process for the organization to where we were actually hiring individuals from competitive industries and from corporate and nonprofit backgrounds in order to do the work that we do. And that has been our real goal. So at one time, when I was first made the director, it was me and about 100 open positions at the time. Since then, now when you count all of our staff, there's about 16 on my team in Atlanta. So it has been a very amazing journey, and one of the things they asked me to share a little bit about is our process, and especially the fact that we, for any part of the world, may be hiring any type of individual or recruiting any type of individual, and what we've seen change in the tools we use for that. So I don't know how many of you, whether you're international or just domestic or what your background would be, but basically our tools are, we use LinkedIn as one of our primary recruiting tools. We use Career Builder. We use for specific nonprofit disciplines such as fundraising, we use even instruments like the Chronicle of Philanthropy. We use InMails a good bit, and we use a lot of what we've learned, and maybe you have as well, when you're in the international setting, if you know the specific posting boards for the different parts of the world you may be working in, there are occasions that they are helpful. We have not found that to be as much in our case. We have really increased our regional hires, which has been a real global plan we've implemented. We have an office in the Manila, Philippines. If anybody has ever recruited for that area, it can be a bit difficult to get non-nationals for opportunities, especially if you're looking for specific skill sets. And so we've really had to expand our ability and our skills within the Asian world to gather and to bring in candidates. We've had to do the same thing in Europe, the office in Bratislava. There's a very small, limited talent pool there, and we've had to go throughout Europe to meet the needs. If you have anything in Africa, we have an office in Pretoria, and they just changed their entire law process if you have any offices there. And basically now you can only hire for local positions a very specific type of, either they have to be South African or permanent resident, and there's a limit on how many you can hire. You have a smaller workforce, you have fewer people you can bring in from outside the country. So we have actually faced challenges almost in every branch of the world, and we have just implemented, like I'm sure some of you may have, a new strategic plan that is in the second year of a 5-year plan, and the entire strategic plan was really based on a global implementation on the idea of strengthening our work around the world. capacity is one of the biggest parts of that implementation, and then they look at my team and say, if anyone's low in their staffing numbers or low in their headcount, then you've got to get them up. So it is a consistent challenge that the team faces when it comes to the staffing process. Some of the things that we've learned, especially some of the team members whose primary responsibility is international, is in the old days you would throw up an ad, you could put it anywhere you wanted and you were fine. Those days are gone. It is research. I actually now need sourcing people and recruiters, because the amount of research, to post one job, and what we would call global assignee, most people use the term expat, in Manila, my recruiter could take up to 3 days to do all the implementation of the ad campaign, the research. LinkedIn is a great tool for that. We use LinkedIn to go to every country and say, this is the skill we need. How many people in that country have this skill? Is it worth our putting our advertising there? And if you can imagine, that's one position, and right now in Asia, I have over 25 open positions. We found that there were great challenges even in the local market in Asia and Manila, and we have had to do almost the same amount of intensive research there to try to figure out where to go to get the disciplines that we need. So research is now such a large component of staffing that's probably even caught me by surprise, having been in the business for many, many years. But I have really understood now through the analytics that the team have to do just pretty much on a daily basis to even figure out where to go to look for the talent we need, because we're so specific in some of the types of disciplines and types of talents that we need. We use some posting boards such as DevX. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that. It's a very strong posting board if you're doing anything in the disaster world. We use ReliefWeb. Probably every position we ever post is somewhere on ReliefWeb. In Europe, there's a board called Charity Jobs that's quite useful. And then we also pretty much just specific. We don't run newspaper ads anymore. We don't do any of those things. And I will say that for our disciplines, the nonprofit specific fundraising, especially, which is sort of the set apart one for nonprofits. Just curious, how many folks in here have just recently hired or are looking for a fundraiser for your organization? Yes, I joined the team. So it is very unique. I actually sat in a room with the CEO of Career Builder recently and didn't mean to criticize him, but let him know how unsatisfied I was with his board because he would not let me post fundraising jobs, and why I wouldn't use his board, because he would not let me. Wasn't quite sure he was actual CEO when I was having the meeting, but I found out immediately afterward. And he invited me back. So I do think you have to really look now at where you're going, how you're spending your dollar. The thing McKinsey's heard, any human being that sat in a room with me when it came to brokering a deal with a vendor will never have enough time, will never have enough staff, and will never have enough money. If you're in a nonprofit and you do, please come see me after this meeting is over, because that has been my history in over 30 years in nonprofits, but 20 years in staffing alone. So when you look at that and you look at implementation of any kind of change, staff are constantly being bombarded with more work, more time. Our only unique piece to me that stands out in our staffing process is we run around 100, 120 open positions consistently. None of our positions are the same. We do not run a telemarketing unit. We don't run a call. We have a very tiny call center, but all of our opportunities are individual openings. I don't think anybody in here has ever experienced this, but for some reason they're all ones. So the moment a position becomes open, I have a hiring manager that believes that their position should get the same priority that one we've been working with for 2 or 3 months. So it is a very level hiring process for us, so the staff are immediately bombarded. The day somebody resigns, I can have an email within hours from a hiring manager saying, when does it get posted? And, how soon can I get resumes? I'm like, well, we'll work on that. Let me see. Let me figure out who's going to recruit it first, and then we'll go from there. So I think some of the things that we have learned, and I have truly learned as I've been working with organizations, is one of the first steps is you've really got to move the needle within your organization. If your leadership are from an age and a time when they literally thought everybody on the planet wanted to work for you, which I do get from time to time, and that the recruiting process is simply throwing up an ad and you've got all the candidates you need, it takes a lot of conversations Where we have really pushed where I've pushed back tremendously more recently is, how about retention? Let's have some conversations about keeping some of these people that I've gone out and hired that aren't staying. And let's figure out some of that needle, because that directly impacts my workload. So I do encourage you, if you're in a role where I have access, I don't know if it's a good or bad thing, but I hear from every senior leader in our organization daily, or at least once a week, and that can be a personal interaction, that can be an email, that can be both, that can be any number of things. So I interact with them. I'm in a role that requires me to on a very regular basis. But part of my job is to help move the needle of their understanding of the process, that the days of old are gone, and it takes a lot of work to hire good talent. And that's what everybody wants ultimately, but it's never going to be with a snap of your fingers. Not like it was when you could just throw up a Sunday ad and get enough resumes to fill the job. I think the other thing you have to do is you have to be very innovative. I think you've really got to think outside the box. That's probably been if I have succeeded at Habitat because of the uniqueness of our hiring in some ways, I have literally every day had to been open to change. I've had to listen to my staff. Sometimes they know these tools and instruments much better than I do, because I don't really recruit anymore. I just lead the whole thing. But they really come up with some great ideas. So I encourage you, if you're in a role where you can give license for people to try stuff, you can give license for people to really understand who are doing the work, I encourage you strongly, listen to them. I've got one staff member here, and there's others that would probably say they don't think that happens, but I will tell you, I do listen. They just don't always understand it at the moment. But I do encourage you, you've got to be innovative. You'll never survive in the nonprofit industry if you're not. I think the other thing you've got to do is you can't be bashful. Leverage the goodwill of others. If my team has heard one conversation from me when I'm especially negotiating with vendors, if you're not committed to nonprofits, I don't want to do business with you. I'll be honest with you, and I've told people directly. When I'm interacting with an individual and their company has no long-term demonstration, their employees don't volunteer, they don't give us discounts, they don't do anything for us, I don't want your business. And you'd be amazed how many people have told me no, and within a week or two I've gotten a call. Well, I went to the head of whatever, and now all of a sudden you've got a great discount. You can't be bashful. You can't be afraid to ask. There's things to say, you have not because you ask not. I have lived by that rule for my 8 years at Habitat, and it has worked. It has developed some great relationships with some incredible vendors that have changed how we do recruiting because they did have the goodwill. But if I had never asked, if I had never pushed back, I came to a conference here 4 years ago, I guess, and I walked around this building because everything I saw was a for-profit entity. Every display was for-profit, and I looked for people to say, where are your nonprofits and where's your commitment to us? Now, within about 6 months, I was shown that commitment in ways that I appreciated. But I don't know what the plan was at the time, but I can tell you I took it personal. And I wanted to see change because I believe in what we do. When you've worked your career in the nonprofit industry, we do good. We bring great value to this nation and to the world. And I believe people should be committed to that. And if a business isn't, I really question what they're committed to other than $1. I'll tell you that. And I'm not afraid. My poor team, they roll their eyes. You can see their hands go down when they see me start going in that direction. But I'm not going to stop, because it's worked well for us. And I encourage you, if you've not been using that approach, to do it. If anybody approaches you thinking they're going to make money off a nonprofit, they're really not very good at business. They will never make money off of us. That's not what we're here for. Even our fundraisers, when they raise $1 million, we tell them we'll build more homes for more families. We're not going to do a bonus. You're not going to get extra. You're a part of what we have been called to do and part of our mission. So I really encourage you that be very innovative and be very innovative and follow your instincts. When Haiti happened, I don't know if any of you were involved in that, but it was tremendous devastation. And within a week, we had staff on the ground, and within 2 weeks, I had staff on the ground. We were asked to fill over 100 jobs within about 4 to 6 months. And I said, we're going to do it online. I'm not hiring newspapers. I'm not going to have people lined up outside the doors. Everything we do to fill these jobs in Haiti, a country that had just been devastated, we're going to do online. We filled every one of them and then some. Everybody, people in Haiti, our organization told me I was wrong, said, no, you'll never fill jobs using an online process. And I said, you're wrong. Every instinct in me tells me that's actually the way to go. People can walk to a cafe, they can go somewhere and apply for a job. And we found great people because we followed our instincts, mine and the teams that was supporting that work, instinct. So I really encourage you, there's just times you just got to go with your gut. You just got to do what you believe is right, especially when you're using donor dollars with every decision you make. I think all of us in the nonprofit world know that the money that we get, 90% of it comes from an organization, if not more, or an individual who believes in what we're doing and wants to support it. So we're all very careful with those dollars, and I do encourage you, but there's just times you got to follow your guts and do what you think is right. So I think my current challenge as a head of staffing, and I'm going to engage my LinkedIn friends while I'm here, this change in the send-mail policy, I want to have a conversation about it with somebody from me because it's impacting my business. Now, I'm going to be selfish on that point and tell you honestly, because I read of the change, and I need to understand what support my team is going to get to be able to change how we use send-mail system, because the current system has been quite useful. I'll be honest with you, almost every true high-level fundraising job we have filled in the past 2 years it's been done through LinkedIn emails. My recruiters have developed some phenomenal skill sets at learning how to engage and write and go back and not make it a bad experience, but actually let them know how much they could bring to our organization and how much we'd like to have them there. And it has worked. And I've had some hiring managers who would not move the needle at all on what they were requiring us to find, and we were finding them. And it is a tremendous help to us in that respect. So in closing, what I have seen over the years is it takes a lot of work. You'll never just get to do one thing in a nonprofit. Probably most of you wear more hats than you'd ever care to remember. But it's awesome. The organization I represent, what we do is amazing. If you've ever seen a human being who never thought they'd have a home, take a key into a home where you see somebody whose whole country was devastated by an earthquake, get a home. It really is beyond what you can comprehend. And then when you see what a home does for an individual, for a family, for a community, and then ultimately can even impact an entire nation and father, it is why we do what we do. We're a very mission-driven organization, and we truly are passionate about what we do, but we have learned to have the people to drive that passion forward and drive the mission forward. It takes a very, very strong staffing process and program to get it done and to get the people we need to do the job. Thank you. Yeah.
So if you have any questions for Jeff, we can take a couple questions before we move to the breakout session. You can either stand over where you're sitting. Oh, Karen?
Yes, I'm just wondering, some of your hires, or some of the senior hires in your affiliates, do board members get involved in the hiring process? And if so, because they do in my organization, do you do any training of the volunteer board members who do get involved in the hiring process?
We actually do. We have an entire branch of the organization for us. We have a U.S. dedicated branch of the headquarters and an international dedicated branch. Those are our area offices that are located actually in the regions of the world. That we actually have staff in those branches whose whole job is to coach the senior leaders or the board members. Normally, if it's what we call national directors or executive directors here in the U.S., they will actually, at times, assist with the search. We, because they're a separate entity, are not as involved. We can provide some help if requested, especially for our national organizations where their capacity is so small that very few have any type of staffing process, and we'll step in and help those. But we have people dedicated. It's not from my team, but we do have people dedicated to assist and to give guidance on that.
All right, hi everyone. I'm Ariana Unai, also a nonprofit relationship manager here at LinkedIn. I'm going to walk us through the next portion of our time together, which is breakout topics. So For those of you who've been to our nonprofit session in the past, we've changed things up a little bit. Previously, we had a series of panel speakers, and this time around, we took your feedback, and we wanted to make it much more interactive. So end goals here being, we'd really love for you all to share best practices around an area that might be most top of mind for you to network with peers, and to hopefully leave with some meaningful connections and action items that you want to tackle as soon as you get back to the office on Monday. So the 4 topics we thought would be the most interesting to you all are broken down here, and are going to be led by subject matter experts or people who we hope can facilitate the conversation who've had some experience with that in the past. So we have Von Gretchen Nelson from the Nature Conservancy, who's going to lead our diversity hiring group. We have Elizabeth Linzer, who's going to be in the back corner right there, who will be leading volunteer and board. They're going to be holding up signs at some point, so you can easily find them. We have Stephanie Alberti, who's a nonprofit relationship manager, who's going to be leading Talent Brand in the back right-hand side of the room. And then you all are familiar with Jeff Brock. He's going to be leading Finding Mission-Driven Talent. So your table captains, they have a set of instructions that are going to make sure that your 20 minutes are really meaningful, and then you walk away with some key takeaways, and kind of helping to facilitate the conversation and chime in and ask some questions to get the topics going. So just self-identify which area you're most interested in. If you're interested in more than one, don't worry about it. We're going to be spending the end of our session today sharing out the top 2 to 3 takeaways from each group. So you're going to hear from everyone, but whichever one you'd rank your top, go to that area, and the table captains will stand up and hold up the signs so you can find them easily. Great. We'll see you all in 20 minutes. Hey, everyone. So sorry to interrupt what seemed to be some amazing conversations, but we only have a few minutes left, and we wanted to leave some time to share. So if each group hasn't already identified one person from your group to be your designated sharer, we'd love for them to come up to the mic and in about 30 to 45 seconds share the 1 to 2 big takeaways from your breakout. Let's start with diversity hiring. Okay, coming back to you. Can we start with mission-driven talent? Great. Does someone want to go up to the mic and give us a really quick summary of what you guys discussed?
I think for our group, a couple things that came out. One was compensation. There are a lot of people that love to work for a nonprofit but just can't afford the pay cut, depending on where they are in life. So I think a number of us said that it's one of the first things we screen for in the initial phone call or email, just to be sure we have a viable candidate. Also, to learn to speak the language of senior leadership, whether that's they need metrics, so give them numbers, or they have a culture that you came into because you came into the organization also, and you're still learning the corporate culture. Be sure that you're speaking in ways that relates to them, so that you have a great relationship with the hiring managers. And then also just legal issues, training hiring managers to know what to ask and what they can't ask. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Volunteer and board?
Okay, so some of the things we talked about with regards to volunteer and board member recruitment. One of the great things, we had somebody from the Peace Corps in our group, and he talked about college recruiting strategies, which I thought was really good. How they target their advertisement, regardless of what forum it's in, to location, where they have hard to fill locations, like we all do in talent acquisition. So, and they've had really good success with the career fairs at the colleges and going to talk with people who have master's degree, or not bachelor's degrees, but also, interestingly enough, a lot of people who are in either second careers or something like that are actually doing the Peace Corps thing, which is very cool. I am on a board. I don't work in nonprofit. My day job is working for a big company, but I am on the board. So we've actually utilized LinkedIn very effectively to recruit additional board members. And I got a really cool trick, because I've been searching for specific skill sets for our board, because we're a volunteer board and we also donate money and some of those things. So trying to find specific people I just found out that you can click a box in the advanced search for people who are interested in nonprofit and board, and that just made my whole day. So I'm very excited about that because I need a marketing person.
Almost 3 million people on the LinkedIn network have signaled that.
Yes, that's what I heard, and I'm so excited about it. So that's awesome. And then the last thing that we came up with that I thought was brilliant, and I can't wait to go home and do it, is to create a LinkedIn group for your nonprofit. And that way you can actually engage people year-round. For example, my nonprofit group does mentorship for kids in foster care for 1 week at camp. And my Atlanta friend will know, they do Camp Twin Lakes. So hopefully, we'll be able to recruit people who have the availability to a whole week. And if we can keep them engaged through the year to do our yearly, thing, that'll be really, really cool. So very good stuff back there. We were small, but we were mighty.
Thank you so much. All right, talent brand. In 30 seconds or less, we have only a couple minutes left, but we really want to hear from everyone.
We talked about a lot of really great stuff, but one of our big things was being able to share our organization's story and benefits in a way that provided differentiated touch points. So whether that was LinkedIn or social media or our website or videos or testimonies, whatever that is, everyone's going to be attracted to different things. And so being able to provide that to, the teacher and me, the differentiated learners, and making sure we reach everyone in a way that is attractive. And then in the same vein, making sure that we are appealing to a diverse candidate pool, which kind of feeds into y'all's realm. But those are the big ones.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
All right, so our group talked about diversity, and I'll try to just boil down a couple of the points that we discussed. But one of them is leveraging your target demographic. So let's say you work for a school and you're looking to recruit male teachers, having current male teachers, really empowering them for referrals. Another thing we talked about was having strong relationships with alumni associations as a good way to recruit diverse candidates. And also just having a diverse body of schools that you go to in the first place will have a diverse applicant pool. Having strong diversity trainings for your companies or nonprofits, making sure that you have a diversity-conscious employee base from C-level to management. And then when you're going on LinkedIn, of course, you have the widest applicant pool of all, making sure that you have tailored searches where you're finding niche groups, if you're trying to find people who are passionate about the environment, in the case of the Nature Conservancy. So those were a couple of the things. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, thanks so much to everyone who shared. I know we're right at time, but before we break, wanted to thank you all again so much for being here. Our hope is that you walked away from today feeling excited, inspired, and hopefully with some contact information from other nonprofit professionals you can network with. Don't forget, we have a happy hour tomorrow evening before the evening party, so hopefully we'll see you all there. We also have a LinkedIn for Good booth, which is right on the 3rd level, so if you want to see us again, come visit us there. We're going to be talking a lot more about how we partner with nonprofits. And then you'll notice on the note sheet that we included a section for the top 3 things you're going to do right when you get to the office on Monday. So again, really want to make sure you walk out of the room feeling like you have some actionable things to really take on and that this session was impactful. Finally, your central place to find out any information about the work we do for nonprofits and how you can best leverage LinkedIn is on nonprofit.linkedin.com. The volunteer site, which is where any board or volunteer positions you post, which we can again tell you more about at the booth, is volunteer.linkedin.com. So those 2 sites are your best friends. Hopefully we'll see you again at the booth and at the happy hour tomorrow night, and thanks again for being here.